So trauma is not in the event, right? The effects of trauma depend on, did we have resolution? Did the threat get resolved? And did we regulate after the threat? Did we get back to state zero, rest and digest? Depends on the load, the amount and the intensity, because the accumulative effect of all of the small stressors can push us into overwhelm, leading to this dysregulation of the system and our ability to regulate ourselves. And it also depends on the lens or the perception. The way that we interpret the situation around us has everything to do with how we experience it. And that may be just something that might be slightly annoying to somebody, might be really overwhelming to another person. So there's a lot of pieces that go into what makes trauma a problem in our system. And it's different for different people. But the myth that trauma is just a bad event is just not true. The truth is, trauma is a state in the nervous system. It's a state in the nervous system, and the solution is awareness. We have to learn to recognize the state in our nervous system. And when we can recognize the state, we can start to work with it, and we can start to have respect for the defensive response. So in my story, I had to learn that the state that I was in was a defensive state, that my body was trying to protect me by not letting me see the danger that I was in. And I had a lot of shame around that. I was very embarrassed about it, and I had this shame until I learned that my body was doing what it needed to do when I was a child. I learned how to check out to survive. So as an adult, I continued with that pattern, this trauma pattern of disconnecting and avoiding. And when I learned that that was a defensive response that really worked when I was a child, that opened up space for me to have more compassion for myself and more understanding of the process. And that opening allowed me to start the healing process. So my favorite quote is, awareness is the greatest agent for change. The first step in the process is to recognize trauma for what it is, to recognize your own pattern of trauma, and then have respect for the fact that you survived, you got through it, and now we can move on to the next step, which would be working towards repair.